Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 200th official episode of this podcast. I've actually made several more, but I've called those episodes bonuses, so officially this is episode 200. And today we're going to make it kind of short and sweet because the last couple episodes have been long. And I think what I have to say today can be short and sweet. And what we're going to talk about is developing a habit of forgiveness and like what that means and what that looks like, why you'd want to do it, most importantly. And I'm going to share that by really mostly just sharing my own story around how I've developed a habit of forgiveness and how that's affected me in my marriage. But before we dive into that, I want to make sure you know about and check out and register for my upcoming live masterclass, which is called Free Your Heart for More Love, Getting Past Blame, Resentment, and Grievance, which is going to do for you just what it sounds like it's going to do for you. It's going to get you past blame and resentment and grievance and really free your heart up, which feels so amazing. In this class, you're going to choose one primary thing that you're feeling resentment, resentful, grievance about, or aggrieved about is another way to put that, or kind of mad about, right, in your relationship. And then you're going to move through a process to finally stop holding on to the pain and bitterness around it. That feels bad, right? Feels a little powerful, but also feels bad. And really free your heart to feel peace and even love again. And you're going to be able to use the same process for any other thing that you know you want to move past in your life and in your relationship. Really, this is more like a mini course because you get the live masterclass, but then a whole bunch of optional extras that I always love to offer you, give you. And you're going to come away from this course with the super skill of being able to get free of resentment and to forgive and to find your way to your heart whenever you want to. So not like when you don't want to, but when you know it's time to get back there to that big, beautiful heart of yours, you're going to absolutely know just how to do that. So that things can feel so much lighter and issues can be resolved so much easier and love can be forefront between you and your honey, because that's why you're in your relationship, right? For you to feel love, for there to be love, for you to get this experience, this delicious experience of love between you. So register for this class before October 24th for only $37. You can find out all about it. I'm going to put the direct link in the show notes here, but you can also find out about it at hspmarriagecoaching.com/free your heart. And you got to sign up this week. And if you can't be there live, of course, the recording will be available. All right. So here's something huge I've learned from experience over the years. When you hold something against your partner, you're imprisoning yourself in pain. Every time you think or speak of how your partner's done you wrong in one way or another, you are recreating hurt for yourself. And that pain will fester. And the toxicity of that pain, that fester, will ooze out into more and more of your life together. We spoke about this a little bit last week on the podcast, or actually a lot. But today I want to speak from my own deep experience about this. And I want to share more of my own story about how easily I used to feel aggrieved or like my husband was doing me wrong and what things are like around this now. So I really know how tempting it feels to harden against my husband's transgressions. Quote, there's air quotes around transgressions because, that's very subjective. But there have been many times when my husband did something that I immediately held against him. Times that he omitted the truth or went back on an agreement and acted like we never made the agreement or regressed into issues I thought we'd move beyond. or said things harshly, or reacted super defensively when I was hoping for a kind, listening ear. So there's many ways in which I've thought he did me wrong. And boy, did I used to get upset. I've even used the word betrayed. I can be a bit dramatic, it's true. But I think that that word feels appropriate when it is some bigger thing that we feel wronged by. And there have been a few of those in my marriage because, well, my husband is human and he didn't arrive in my life super skilled relationally. He's gotten a lot better, but he's been a work in progress. But feeling hardened, feeling mad, hurt, and resentful can also happen, not just from these big things, but this is important, from an accumulation of small slights or things that feel like slights that we feel have been perpetrated against us. Again, like the ones that I just mentioned, right? Where he gets defensive or doesn't listen or he goes back on an agreement. So you might feel this yourself when there have been many of these, as there tends to be when you live with someone who you want so much from and so much with. It really can feel hard to move past. And I do think we HSPs are very prone to this because, again, as always, of how deeply we feel and also how tuned our dials are to subtlety, including subtle, quote, wrongs. So add that to our super relationally oriented nature, and bam, you have a perfectly ripe environment inside of us for feeling wronged. So for me, when I felt wronged, what would happen then? Well, I'd feel against my husband. I'd shut down my heart towards him. I'd get cold. And depending on how badly I felt, I'd snap at him or I'd criticize him or mostly get really upset at him and tell him all about it in, well, not the nicest way. And that, of course, would only drive a deeper wedge between us. So the consequence of this for me was pain and that toxic feeling of resentment and anger I couldn't move past. And feeling like this man that I so wanted to feel love for, was bad and that I couldn't love him and he didn't deserve my love, right? And also feeling bad about how I was behaving, feeling guilty and ashamed because that's not who I wanted to be, right? Cold, shut down, or critical and snappy. I didn't want to be that way with this person because I also knew that I really did love him, even if I couldn't feel it because I was so resentful. So this cycle really is so painful and destructive, even when it was just a mild cycle of this, like even when it wasn't like a huge thing that happened. So as John Wellwood, who's one of my bigger, earlier influences, I really love his work, he's written, the most destructive element in human relationships is the urge to make other people bad or wrong, and then judge, reject, or punish them for that. The tragic consequences of this show up everywhere. And that is what we do when we feel aggrieved, when we feel resentful, when we harbor chronic anger or grievance, right? We then make the other person bad or wrong, and we judge them and we reject them and we punish them for that. And really, it does no good in our relationships at all. And it certainly doesn't do our beautiful hearts any good. So for me these days, this happens a lot less often. I may go to that sense of grievance or having been wronged very briefly at first, but I no longer hang out in that feeling that he's turned against me or he's done me wrong. I don't keep re-feeling that slight. I don't stay aggrieved because I have formed a habit of forgiveness. I almost always forgive my husband naturally within a matter of moments. Sometimes it's a little longer. But what is that like for me? It's like setting myself free of a icky cage. Setting myself free from hurt, from anger, from feeling against the person I most love in the world. I don't really know how else to put it. I know that sounds kind of airy-fairy, but it is a physical sensation of lightness and warmth in my heart again, instead of cold and shut down, right? I feel like me again, myself again. I feel light. I feel like a heavy weight or shackles have been lifted from my heart. When I forgive like this, I give myself back feelings of peace. I give myself back the capacity to love and to let love in. In a sense, it gives the best of myself back, and it gives me the best of my husband back too. Before I learned how to do this and built this habit, forgiveness totally did used to be harder. Like I think it is for so many people, the idea of forgiving him felt confusing. It used to seem like giving him power, or like letting him get away with something I shouldn't let him get away with, or like condoning his bad behavior. That was what I was worried forgiving him would do. But I actually knew intellectually that that was never the case. And that by holding on to that way of thinking about it, I was keeping myself locked into a sense of victimhood, right? Like just that small, hard, bitter feeling. I was only adding pain to pain when I thought forgiveness wasn't helping me, that it would be bad. And of course, the other obstacle for me was it felt like work to forgive. But I could also feel so clearly that not forgiving dragged me down in so many ways. So I experimented with leaving those imprisoning stories out of the picture. I chose to stop seeing it like that. I chose to try it and see what it was like. I remembered that to forgive was to set myself free. And that reminder really helped me go ahead and actually forgive. And every time I succeeded, I noticed how much better I felt, how much quicker I felt good again in my relationship with him, and how much more easily our conversations were able to actually solve the original problem. So seeing this was everything. It made forgiveness the obvious choice. And the more I intentionally chose to forgive and bring this much better experience into my love life, the easier it came. And now it's simply a habit to forgive. I choose it almost unconsciously most every time I feel that hardening that comes from holding things against my husband. And that is what this habit of forgiveness really is, the habit of giving myself the love I want, the peace I want. I know I will need to keep choosing it again and again forever into the future, because forgiveness isn't something that just happens once, especially when it's a bigger thing that you're working through. It oftentimes needs repetition. So it's a good thing it's become mostly a habit for me. So it starts to happen more and more naturally, more organically. It really, really does. And for me, it was well worth working over the hurdles inside of myself to build this habit, or almost this muscle, because it's brought me so much more strength to love and to be loved. Really, without this skill, I would be having a pretty cruddy time in my marriage, truly. And I really believe that my husband would be a worse husband if I didn't have this skill. I know that sounds kind of wild, but forgiving him has allowed me to effectively show him how the little quote unquote wrongdoings, like those times he's gone back on an agreement and acted like we never made that agreement, or omitted the truth, or said things harshly, or got defensive when I just really wanted him to hear me and see me with love. Forgiving him has allowed me to effectively show him how those things, and also bigger wrongdoings, really were not good for us as a couple, and we're not serving him either. We've been able to have amazing discussions and healing conversation because of this habit of forgiveness that I have. I've been able to get back to my heart and to speak with him about these issues from a place that is not laden and dripping with anger and resentment. In other words, I've been able to have conversations with him from an energy that he's much more receptive to, an energy that makes him want to be a better man and actually go about consciously working to be a better husband. A much simpler way to put that is because I can get back to my heart so easily, so can he. Because I can forgive, he can grow. And our marriage just gets better and better over the years. So I invite you to choose this for yourself, to give yourself this most liberating, loving gift of building the habit of forgiveness. And yes, there may be some real hurdles to build this habit. There may be some challenges that come up, but they're going to be so much smaller when you join my Free Your Heart Masterclass, because this class will teach you exactly how to build this habit of forgiveness step by research-backed step. And you're going to do it in a tender, loving way that makes you feel closer and more connected, most importantly, and first of all, to yourself, and then to your husband. And as you build this habit of forgiveness, it's going to make it easy to have the mutual support and connection, lightness and effective communication and loving authenticity you deeply want with your partner. So join us. It's only $37. You get to keep the whole process and all the extras forever. And you guys, I really think that one of the biggest problems in modern marriages is that we don't naturally have this skill or this habit. We don't know how to do this well. It gets so hard to forgive and to move past resentment. But it's really because you haven't had the teachings, the skills, and the practice. And this is what this is going to give you, this class. So our live class is October 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if you can't make the live interactive portion, you will certainly be able to still have access to the recording of the class, along with everything else that comes with it. So head to the show notes to get the direct link to register for that, or you can head to hspmarriagecoaching.com/freeyourheart and sign up now this week, because it's all happening Friday. I cannot wait to be there live with you. All right, my dears, be oh so well.